Hi, I'm Marc Childs from Childs Davidson. Welcome to our video series on FMCG issues. Today I want to talk to you about the Australian retailer Coles. Coles is a seemingly powerful retailer with significant market share in Australia, yet it's been dogged by continuing marketplace problems. And I want to look at why this illustrates a wider problem facing the industry internationally. In my separate video where I describe what I see as the top 10 challenges facing our industry, I point out that in FMCG, both sides, but in particular retailers, are destroying value that ultimately will not be to the benefit of anybody. In a perfect illustration of this, the big retailer, Coles, has been sold for the second time in a decade. And I'll explain to you why I think this is an indication of wider problems facing the industry. The Coles story is a cautionary tale of just how vulnerable major retailers are, even when they are profitable and hold significant market share, as is the case with Coles. And just to emphasize this point, Coles has 32% or thereabouts of the Australian grocery market and could be arguably said to be in a stronger position than, say, Edeka in Germany, or Leclerc or Carrefour in France, or Mercadona in Spain, or Tesco in the UK, or even Walmart in the US. It could also be argued that Coles doesn't face the same level of intense market competition that all of those other retailers face in their home markets. So with all these seemingly significant advantages that Coles has in the Australian market, why is it struggling? And why has it been sold off by its owners twice now in the last 10 years? Well, I don't want to oversimplify this, but like many markets in the world, I think it comes down to differentiation. I've often said in these commentaries that if you took an observer into one of those stores with a blindfold on and removed the blindfold, they would have trouble working out where they were for some time. Such is the minimal difference between these two retailers. And yet they occupy perhaps 80% of the Australian market. It's interesting that both Coles and Woolworths have good real estate, the foundation on which supermarket business is built anyway. So what often distinguishes them is small tweaks in what is otherwise a relatively generic strategy. In its second 5-year plan, Coles seemed to lose its way, and not coincidentally, Brad Banducci took over from Woolworths and did a fantastic job of taking that retailer back to, you guessed it, fundamental good retailing practices. In effect, tweaking the strategy of this retailer. By then, Coles was poorly led. Good leadership, it seems, is worth its weight in gold. So although I say the fundamental issue here is lack of differentiation, there are some very specific issues facing Coles that probably are contributing to this. I think there are three main ones that we should mention here. The first, obviously, is poor leadership. We hear stories of young buyers who are hamstrung by top management, lack of leadership, and interference. The second issue is alienation of the supplier base. Coles is a poor collaborator. It doesn't share data. It isn't very clear about its purposes when it communicates with suppliers, and it's not open to them and to their ideas. So it misses opportunities for differentiation through acceptance of product innovations. The third issue specific to Coles is a preoccupation with some very wrong strategic priorities, according to many observers. In particular, operations department having too big a say as it drives business simplification priorities that in effect are anti-sales initiatives. This is causing what many observers would say is the worst compliance at Coles in living memory, and of course causing Coles to miss out on opportunities for sales growth. Where this nets out ultimately, and this is true for many retailers internationally, is an over-reliance on price as a differentiator, a competitive struggle that they simply can't win. It's a zero-sum game. I said at the outset that I'd explain why I think the Coles story has implications for retailers and the industry internationally. And the reason is that so many retailers in particularly Western markets face similar challenges to Coles. Poor differentiation in a crowded market, often much more crowded markets than the Australian one. Bad engagement with manufacturers who could, after all, assist them with their differentiation. And finally, preoccupation with short-term priorities and an over-reliance on price as the ultimate differentiator, something that most of them simply can't achieve. Coles has recently shown a slight improvement, so my prediction is that they're not going to do anything particularly wonderful anytime soon. And in any case, this seesawing between the two big retailers who don't differentiate particularly well is likely to continue into the future. My prediction internationally is that we're going to see more big retailers in trouble, especially in Europe, where markets are very crowded, but perhaps in most of the rest of the world if we enter a period of economic slowdown, as many are predicting. In this dysfunctional environment, little wonder that we're having difficulty as an industry in creating value. This is Marc Childs from Childs Davidson. Thank you for watching. If you found that interesting, remember to like and comment. And also remember to hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss out on future videos.